Hi, this is Ray here again from Gamma Ray Crafts, and I'm here today just to give you another, hopefully a little bit more thorough step-by-step on the feather painting process. I've gotten a lot of questions on my Instagram account, and I just want to try and go through a little bit more of the process and the materials I'm using. Also, probably the most requested thing I've been getting is to do a rainbow feather, and I've picked up some new acrylic paint colors so that today I can do the rainbow because that's been a lot of requests. So first off, the paints I'm using, probably the thing I get asked the most is what is the white paint that I put down first before I put anything else down. And when you guys see me do these, I just have it in like a reused. It's not, this is not it at all. It's just a reused bottle because I do try and reuse as much as possible. But it's very similar to what all the rest of the paints are. It's just a white mixture. So about 20% of this is paint, and the other 80% of this is Floetrol from Flood. And this is a type, we use it as basically a pouring medium. It's basically a type of paint additive. They use it to eliminate brush strokes and to make paint flow easier for house painting, but it also works for those of us who do pour art, kind of to extend the paint to make it flow and pour easier. It's, there's a lot of different mediums out there, and that one is just a really accessible, relatively inexpensive one. It's kind of been the one I've been using, and I've had a lot of really good success with it, so that's what I've been doing. So 80% of the white is the Floetrol from Flood. So the other 20% is a mix of a couple of different white paints. So most of it is just kind of my basic level, artist acrylic. At the moment, I am working through some, because I go through a lot of it. I tend to buy a big container of white and a big container of black, and whether I'm at AC Moore or Michael's, I just pick up their, whether it's the Artist Loft, basic acrylic, or if there's a good sale on Liquitex Basics, or the AC Moore, a basic acrylic. It's just their white basic acrylic paint. I do add a little bit of the Artist Loft metallic white and a little bit of the Artist Loft iridescent medium, just because I have all my paint colors have a little bit of metallic or a little bit of iridescent, so I like to have the background also have just a hint of metallic or iridescence in it. So yeah, I mix mostly the plain white, a little bit of metallic white, a little bit of iridescent medium. So 20% of that paint, 80% Floetrol, and then just add a little bit of water to it until it gets to this kind of, warm honey where it just kind of flows off the stir stick consistency. So I have the same consistency for my base layer as I do my paints, at least for this particular technique. So I mix that up ahead, no silicone in that, and just mix it up, 8 ounces at a time and keep it on hand. So the other colors I'm using today to get the rainbow, and the reason I had to go get some more paints is I'm finding with the feathers that the transparent colors, when I do the feathers, they kind of disappear into, like, they just don't show up as well because the feathers are so wispy that if you don't get something that is, if it's just too transparent, it just doesn't get seen. It just disappears. You almost end up with like a invisible part of your feather. So when you're buying paint, and this is gonna be tricky on this camera, but this one's pretty good. So most brands of paint will have somewhere here where it has this little box, and that box will either be an outline, or it will be half filled in, or it will be solid like this one is, and that's telling you whether your paint is transparent, semi-opaque, or opaque. And in another video, I'm going to talk a lot about paint densities, because looking at that actually has a lot of usefulness when we go and we're doing things like flip cups and helping you get cells. In this case, I was looking at it because I wanted to make sure that all my colors were at least semi-opaque, if not opaque, because I'm finding that's where I get the boldest colors when I do my feathers. So I went out, I had to go buy a new red and a new orange. So I ended up with the Basics Cadmium Red Deep Hue, the Artist Loft Cadmium Orange Hue. From Artist Loft I have a metallic lemon yellow. I have a metallic leaf green from Artist Loft, metallic blue from Artist Loft, and the dioxine blue or dioxine purple from Liquitex Basics, which is definitely one of my favorite colors. The ones that aren't metallic, so the red, the orange, and the purple, all have just a little bit of the iridescent medium mixed in, which is just basically, little bits of mica mixed in a clear medium, which just, adds this little bit of shimmer, especially if you're going to be adding resin to your piece afterwards. Okay, so we're going to clean these up. Which direction decided I wanted to do these in. Okay, so I do have my paints organized. Now we're losing the red off the camera a little bit, but I do have them organized in kind of that old traditional rainbow. We're kind of doing a there we go, a Roy G. Biv. So, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo violet, so purple. Simplify it today. So I've already prepped my canvas. So I'm using it's a gallery wrapped canvas rather than a back stapled. I find it's definitely worth upgrading to the gallery wrapped canvases. They definitely tape and mask a lot easier. And just to give you an idea of how these look when they're done, for those of you who are less familiar with the feathers, this is one I painted a couple weeks ago, so I've already finished. The paint's dry, it's still finishing curing, so I haven't poured the resin or any sort of gloss coat over it yet. I usually paint the sides. It's just how I've chosen to finish these. And I like to do a little bit of a metallic detail on that edge just to kind of bridge the transition between the side edge color and the top. And that was another question I get a lot of for these edges. What I have been using is these Deco Color acrylic paint pens. And these, I get them at AC Moore, which if you're on the West Coast, the East Coast, they're a great craft retailer, and I'm sure the other, stores have very similar. It's not just an acrylic paint marker, and they have, silver metallic, gold metallic, copper metallic, all the different kind of shades of metallic. I was at a really cool conference this past weekend and spent some nice time with the people from Pebeo, and they showed me these, which I just actually got my set this morning because they didn't have any of the metallics to send me home with at the show. And that's actually what I used on this one, which, as you could probably tell, hopefully in this light, has just an insanely glossy metallic right here. It is brighter than anything I've ever seen, and it's actually an oil-based artist marker, and these things, it's like Quicksilver. They are just ridiculous. And while you can't put acrylics over oil paints. You can definitely put oil paints over acrylics, so you just want to make sure it's your last layer, and then resin will go over both. So I'm really looking forward to continuing to play with these later. Okay, so get these canvas up off the table a little bit. Okay, so I've mentioned this in a previous video. We want to make sure with the feathers that we keep the background layer of paint relatively thin, just because when you're pulling on the string, if you have too thick of a layer, it sort of dams up and it kind of distorts the feather. And so I find that if you keep it a fairly thin coat, that you end up with a much nicer looking feather. And since I already have the canvas gessoed with white and we're using a white background, we don't need a whole lot of additional white paint for coverage. And I'm actually not worrying too much about the sides of the canvas, just because I'm going to be painting them a different color. So I'm just trying to get a nice smooth even coat right across and to the edge. And when this dries, and if there's a little bit of unevenness, it usually doesn't show, but try and get it as smooth as I can. So one other thing I should mention is I do use silicone with these feathers. I'm still using the 3-in-1, silicone, which you can get at the hardware stores. I've tried the hair serum. I've tried a couple of different silicones, and I keep coming back to this one. It's easy. It cleans up off the canvases really well. I've had way more successful cleaning my canvases and getting the resin to not pit or have coverage issues with this silicone. So for me, this has been just the winner. I've already added silicone to those 3 colors, but I'm just going to add a single drop to these. Normally I would only stir these a little bit, but what I'm finding with the feathers is I actually stir them a little bit more. Because what happens with the silicone is the more you stir, the smaller the cells you get. And with the feathers, I'm actually okay with having small cells. I don't want to have these big cells that distort the feather. So for these, I'm okay with stirring just a little bit more. Of course, I put my finger right in the canvas, because that's just what we do here. There we go. That's pretty good. And just gonna get the bubbles off the background layer real quick. Okay, so now's the fun bit. So of note, most of you probably already seen these videos, so you know this is going to be the top of the feather, this is going to be the base of the feather, and actually I'm going to start here at the bottom. You want to leave some extra of your string, and this is just cotton crochet string, or like dishcloth crochet cotton. I work for Premier Yarns in my day job, so it's actually a Premier Home Cotton if you want to get the exact same thing. I'm finding cotton string is good because it absorbs a little bit of paint, and it has a little bit of weight to it, which seems to kind of help control the string a little bit when you're doing the actual feather. So I'm just adding, I'm kind of trying to give myself enough room to get all 6 colors here. A little bit of each. it doesn't need a whole lot, but you do want to make sure you're getting coverage. And as far as string length goes, you just want to make sure, the goal is to kind of place it at a little bit of a bend. So if you have it, and then you need a little bit of extra to actually control it while you're doing the painting. So if you cut it, maybe 2 inches longer than your canvas length, that gives you plenty to hold on to and enough to get paint on. But you're only going to put paint on probably the length of your canvas minus an inch or 2, depending on how much room you want to leave yourself for any embellishments or how much of a kind of curve you're going to put on this when you do your actual feather. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. We got all of our colors. The total length painted is a little bit shorter than the canvas itself. So let's go ahead and pick it up. You don't want to go quite all the way to the top of the canvas because the feather you do get a little bit of feather created at the top of the string. So this is pretty good, a nice bend. And you do need a fairly light hand with this, and that is something a couple people have tried it, have commented. So you want to pull away. And up. There we go, there's the first half. Back in the paint, matching up colors. Not so much I'm adding more paint now, is just that I'm kind of pushing the string back in, making sure nice fresh, covering up the white paint that gets transferred over from the background. I'm going very daring today and not using gloves. We'll see if I regret that later. This is always the fun part, trying to get that initial, land that in the same spot, because once you get the string landed, it usually cooperates pretty good and lets you get it back down. And we just pull it away and up and keep a fairly light hand with it, especially at the top there. So here we go, we got the second side. And the last thing we want to do is create the center of the feather. Make sure you just get a little bit, and I just use the center, the very end of the string here, lay it back down, and just drag it down along that same line. And there we go. So we have a rainbow. And actually I think that's pretty spiffy. So after this, I think I'm going to do another one of these. I posted on my Instagram page, where I'm going to do it in the reverse and have the purple here at the top and the red at the bottom. So we'll have to see, get a side-by-side of them later if you check my Instagram page, and it's at Gamma Ray Crafts. You'll be able to see both of them side by side. So the rainbow from top to bottom and then from bottom to top. See how they look once this dries, and they usually stay pretty similar when dry. We'll go ahead, add paint around the edge, color around the edge, add a framing color around the top, and later it will get some sort of varnish, whether it'll either get Minwax polyacryl or it will get a high gloss resin coat. The last thing we could do, and this one I'm getting a lot of really nice cells, so it almost doesn't need it. But if we want to, maybe here where it's getting a little bit, and then just hit really light on these just edges with the torch. Just kind of promote just a little bit softening those edges. Okay. Well, thank you all so much. I know it was a bit of a longer video, but I hope that answered a lot of your questions. If you have any more, feel free to pop them on the comments down below, and please give me a follow. I'm hoping to keep posting more of these, and not just feathers. I'm hoping to, now that the feathers are, you know, keep doing feathers, but also get back to a lot of my other fluid acrylic painting and get back to some other techniques as well. So there'll be lots more going on here on the channel. So thank you all again. Night.